Welcome to another episode of The Granite-less Live, where we explore all things human capital and benefits related. I'm your host, Sally Pace, and today we are joined by a guest, Jen Frantom with the Learning Care Group. Thanks for being on, Jen.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't we start by telling our listeners, what is Learning Care Group and what do you all do?
Absolutely. So Learning Care Group has two different facets of the business. The core business is that we run early childhood education centers throughout the country. So we have over 1,100 childcare centers and have for over 50 years. We operate under 11 different brands. So you won't necessarily see a Learning Care Group childcare center out there. So some of them that you may see in your communities are Everbrook or La Petite or Child Time or Tutor Time or You Grow. Those are some of them. And then the part of the business that I run is the employer-sponsored piece of it. So we felt like we really perfected what childcare looks like and how to operate it. And we started doing this for corporations for on-sites. So a company with a large concentration of employees would say, we want childcare on site. And so we will operate that. And then we also take the community schools that we have and we use them to create benefits packages around childcare benefits. And we can get into all of the different products there. But those are really the two main businesses that Learning Care Group does.
Perfect. Well, before we jump into that, I want our listeners to know a little bit about you and what led you to this position with Learning Care Group. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I've been in the employer-sponsored space most of my career, 20 years, more in the financial services side of it, so 401k specifically, and really thought that I was going to retire in that business. And then, COVID happened and I got called by a recruiter and he said, we've got this opportunity. And I kind of have a, say yes to everything mentality. And so I said, all right, let's talk. Really feeling like there was no way I would ever leave the industry that I've been in for so long. And as he started talking about what Learning Care was doing and what they were trying to grow, I got more and more excited because personally, it really hit home for me. I was 41 at the time with a 4-year-old at home because we were going through COVID. And I was one of those people that waited later in life to have a kid because I felt like my career would have suffered. And so as he's explaining to me, there's this new benefit that's really growing. It's childcare benefits. With COVID happening, it's resonating because so many people have kids at home. So many women are leaving the workforce. And companies are really starting to understand the importance of supporting working families. I was just like, gosh, this is so refreshing to hear. And he just went on to say, this is an opportunity to really build out not just a business within Learning Care Group, but a product that was just starting to really evolve. And I was completely sold. It was so relevant for me and it really hit home. It was the stars aligned. And so I took the leap and I've been here almost 4 years now and just love every minute of it.
That's awesome. Yes. I mean, I know we were talking earlier, almost exact same age as you when I had my child, and same thing, really focused on career. And it has been so refreshing as a working mom to see this groundswell of focus by employers offering services for moms like us, really addressing that need and seeing our value in the workplace, and then also doing something about it. So thank you. And I love that you get to wear, two hats when you're at work because you are the audience you're trying to serve.
Exactly. The product was built for me. And I think that's something too that, a lot of companies may not realize is that there's the financial piece to adding childcare to your benefits package, which is, can we help our employees cover the cost of care? But then there's other pieces as well. There's finding care. There's priority access in certain parts of the country where there's wait lists. I mean, it's just the adding it as, a benefit that shows women that the company supports having a family. And that's the big picture. And we're seeing that's where companies are really seeing success with it.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into what you've built over the past 4 years. Let's talk about that employer-facing offering.
So on-site childcare, which I mentioned earlier, has been around for quite a while, but it really hasn't been for everybody. It's been for the large companies that have, again, a massive group of people in one place, and it's expensive. I mean, right now, with the cost of everything, if you were going to build a ground up, it could be a $6 million investment just to build the center, and then you've got to run it after that. So that's not for everyone. And then we started to see backup care come into the marketplace. And this is where basically a company will say, whatever childcare you use, if that falls through, we'll cover a certain number of days in a center. You can take your child there for the day, and then you don't have to miss work or scramble to find care. And so that's been around for a while. And we do both of those. Where we're starting to see more and more traction is in what we call funded childcare, which is where the employer pays for a percentage or flat dollar amount of childcare. And we use our schools. So again, they can go to any of our 1,100 schools and parent enrolls, and then we bill the company for whatever it is they've determined that they would like to use. And that's been the way Learning Care Group has operated for a while. We recently came out with an add-on to that because while we do have 1,100 schools, we can't be everywhere. And there are plenty of pockets in the country where we don't have centers. And so we created an open access platform whereby the parent can choose any center, and then they would just be reimbursed whatever that allotted amount is that the companies determine they want to contribute. So it's not like you're limited to this network. You have to pick from this grouping of schools. You can really pick anything. And to take it a step further, we even allow, if the company selects, we will allow privately secured care, meaning that they can have someone come into the home. So we're seeing a lot of success in that area. When you think about manufacturing companies or retail where, there's nights and weekend work and you typically don't see center-based care that will accomplish that, we're seeing a lot of companies like that aspect of the product.
You talked about the on-site care. When I hear that, I think of like the Amazons of the world, the mega employers. Who are you serving? What types of employers are you serving?
Everything. So we work with corporations, we work with hospitals, universities, government agencies. We're even starting to work with some churches. And this is an interesting concept. You think about there's all of these communities across the country where there's what you call childcare deserts, where it's really hard for childcare to sort of exist and run. And you have larger churches that have built out Sunday school space. And then during the week, it sits empty. And so we've had churches come to us and say, can you come in and operate a community school during the week? And then we'll flip and use it on Sundays for Sunday school or whatever. And so we're seeing a lot of traction there. And it's really great because it's giving back to the communities that really need that care. So we work with all types of organizations.
I want to go back to, you touched a little bit on the financials and you mentioned that you're seeing a rise in employer funded care. Help our listeners understand what that looks like. As a mom, I was so excited to learn that I could use part of my flexible spending account in the early days for childcare, which was, of course, partially my dollars. Is this a combination? Are you seeing employers fully fund it? Talk through the financials.
Yes. So our funded care platform is strictly employer sponsored. So you can combine this with a dependent care FSA. It's actually a nice complement where the parent can set some money aside tax deferred, and then the company can contribute as well. So the baseline for our funded care product is a 10% discount. And again, that's within all of our Learning Care Group schools. And then what we typically see is a company 10%, the cost of childcare right now is so expensive, 10% oftentimes doesn't do that much. I mean, it's great, but a lot of companies feel like they'd like to do more. And so the thing that we really pride ourselves on is we sit down with a company and we will figure out how to best structure it based on their budget. Some companies say, I want to do an additional 10%, 20%, 30%. Some companies say, I want to do an additional $100 a month or whatever. We can design it to be whatever they want it to be. We've got some companies that say that they want to do a tiered approach. So think about companies like retail, for example, that have executives all the way down to minimum wage earners. And your executive might not need the same sort of assistance as your minimum wage earners do. So they will kind of reverse that where they say, the lower wage earners get a bigger contribution than your higher wage earners. So we can do that as well. We can structure it as a scholarship. anything. There's total flexibility in this right now. It's really great. And there is a lot more flexibility than in a dependent care FSA because there aren't the restrictions and such that there are there. So we can build it any way we want. One of the things that we're seeing that's been really cool, and again, thinking about our community schools, are companies that want to have an on-site center but don't necessarily have the space for it. And so they will look to us to say, can we purchase a specific number of slots in one of your community schools that are nearby? We call that guaranteed spaces. And then we could call it a near site. So not truly on the campus of the company, but near site. And so we'll do that, and we'll put the company's logo in the lobby and say, welcome employees of X company. And so it's really great because the company gets to sort of use that. We have a near site without having to put any of the upfront cost to build a center.
That's fabulous. Kind of like the on-site, near-site clinic model on the medical plan side. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That is brilliant. What about ages? What age groups are you serving?
So we're 6 weeks all the way up through pre-K. And then we do school age for, say, after school or summer or during a holiday. So most of our centers have that school age program, but they all go through pre-K.
What about, you've been there building it from the ground up for the employer-facing model. Do you have any success stories you can share? Besides your own? Besides your own?
Yeah. One of the things that we're seeing, there is, as I'm sure most people that will listen to this can feel, there is a desire to get people back into the office. And you can feel one way or the other about it. But the truth is that companies are really wanting people to come back in the office, maybe not full time, but some of the time. And so we've seen some companies use this as an incentive to get back into the office. We recently worked with a company that was going to pay, and this is rare. I don't want to set this as the bar, although we would all love it, but this company is paying 100% of childcare if their employees come back to the office 4 days a week. And again, this is all stuff that's happening based on what's just been happening in the workforce dynamic. Another thing that also is cool about being able to have multiple options and not be tied to this network of certain schools is if someone is a hybrid worker, you might want your child to be somewhere near your home when you're working from home, and you might want them to be somewhere near your office when you're working from the office, because a lot of people moved far away from their office when they thought they were going to be 100% at home. And now they're getting asked to come back, and it's a much more of a commute than it used to be. And so, again, just being able to kind of identify what the needs are of the workers and then tailor a solution to that is something that we're really, really proud of and that we've seen a lot of success with.
Well, and I think when you talk about employers meeting their employees where they are, the great thing about what Learning Care Group offers is that it is only a benefit for the parent, but it's also a benefit for the employer. We haven't really touched on this, and I know we could talk all day about this because I'm certainly passionate about it as a mom, but that presenteeism is real, and certainly absenteeism. We know that moms are often the first line of defense when your child is sick and out. And so it helps both the employee and the employer maintain work capabilities, work productivity. It's a win-win.
100%. One of the things that I noticed, and I'm starting to see more visibility to, which is great, again, coming from the 401k background, 401k platforms now, it's almost like a given that most of the platforms have this financial wellness tool built into it for the participants. And the reason, I was around when those started in that industry, and it was, the big selling point was your people are not as productive as they can be if they are financially stressed. And so let's embed within their 401k platform some tools for them for how to calculate, mortgage and long-term care and all of that. And in those are all these different things that stress people out financially, but there wasn't anything for childcare, and we're starting to see a little bit of that come in. There were some 529 calculators, but nothing for childcare. And, everywhere you look, you see the second largest expense in any family's household behind mortgage is their childcare. And so if you're thinking about how do I help my people be their most productive and be less stressed, do their kids have a safe place to go, and are they able to really afford it, would certainly be something that would stress them out and affect their productivity. So yeah, the companies definitely see a big benefit of adding this to their packages. And then, just retaining people and hiring people. We do surveys and we ask all the time, would you make a lateral move to a company that didn't have childcare? And people say no. It's a big reason that I stay where I am, is because my company has this great benefit. So yeah, there's a lot to it. And it's funny because one of the things that sometimes comes up that we have to have a conversation around is, well, is this really equitable? Because, I've got a lot of employees that don't have kids. So are they going to feel like this isn't fair? They're getting this money because they have kids and I'm not getting the money. And the answer is, you and I, especially, who had children later in life, we've been on teams where we may not have had kids, but the people that had kids, when they didn't show up or when they were distracted, it affected all of us, right?
100. Yes. Oh, yes. You feel it.
You feel it.
You feel like you're in the trenches with them too.
Exactly. So trust me when I say that even your employees that don't have children will benefit from your parents being less stressed about it.
That is a perfect way to end the show, because that is so very true. Well, Jen, it has been a delight to have you on, and we are so proud to have the Learning Care Group on the Granite List platform. So certainly people can find you there, but if somebody wanted to reach out directly to Learning Care Group, what is the best way to learn more?
Yeah, so go to our website, learningcaregroup.com, and then you'll see the employer benefits section, and then you can click contact us, and there's a web form there to fill out, and we will be in touch with you very quickly.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for carrying the torch for Learning Care Group. Thank you for leaving what is also a very interesting space on the voluntary benefits side and making the big plunge to build out this employer-facing offering, because it is certainly something, like you said, I think it's just getting started. We can only go up from here. We are so proud to be partners with Learning Care Group on the Granite List. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Granite List Live.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Granite List Live. Access our entire library by visiting your favorite podcast venue or subscribe on our site, thegranitelist.live.